I never thought a night janitor job could scare me. I applied online for the Haraja office tower because it was easy work, and the pay was decent. I thought it would be simple sweeping floors, taking out trash, locking doors, and watching empty hallways. I arrived at 10:30 p.m. on my first night, and the building towered over me, its dark windows reflecting nothing. I checked in with the security guard, who barely looked up from his phone. He slid me a set of keys and a walkie-talkie and muttered, "Don't go past the 10th floor after 2 a.m. Nothing good happens there." I laughed. I didn't take him seriously. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt the air was too heavy. The hallways smelled of old carpet cleaner and dust, and the shadows along the walls seemed to stretch farther than they should. I told myself it was imagination, and started my round, sweeping the 5th floor glass offices and dim hallway lights. But then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, behind me on carpet that should have muffled every sound. I turned around, nothing, the hallway empty. I told myself it was echoes, but the steps continued behind me, soft, brushing along the floor. I gripped the mop tutta and tried to move faster. The lights flickered once, twice, then stuttered out, leaving me in darkness for a moment so complete. I could feel it pressing against me, whispering in my head, "Don't leave, stay." I spun around again, nothing, but I could feel eyes on me glowing somewhere in the darkness. I tried calling the security guard on the walkie-talkie, only static responded. The air around me grew colder. Every step I took, the whispers grew louder, repeating the same words over and over, until it sounded like a chorus, all speaking at once. I ran to the elevator, pressed the button to the lobby, and the doors opened onto a floor I had never seen before. Dust thick on the carpet, boxes stacked against the walls. The smell of rot and old paper hit me. I stepped forward and saw a figure at the end of the hallway, 2 tall arms dangling unnaturally, head tilted to the side, its glowing white eyes staring at me. I froze for a moment, and then the lights flickered, and it was gone. I ran back to the elevator. The door slammed shut, and the buttons no longer worked. The darkness closed in, and I could feel something brushing past me, like it wanted to follow me inside my skin, my hair, my very mind. I tried to call out my name, but the building swallowed it up. Every hallway I ran through, twisted and lengthened doors, appearing and disappearing, shadows crawling along walls, sometimes sliding through them, footsteps echoing behind me faster than any human could move. I stumbled into a stairwell, smelled mold and rust, the air thick with decay. The scratching sounds behind me grew louder, like nails dragging across metal. My flashlight bounced, wildly revealing shapes twisting along the walls, limbs bending the wrong way, faces pressing against glass, some laughing silently, some screaming. In my mind, the building had trapped me. It was alive, aware of my fear. By the time I reached the basement doors, heavy and locked, I pressed with all my strength. Something pressed back like it weighed a ton. I could feel hundreds of shadows emerging from vents, corners, walls, gliding silently, faceless, glowing white eyes, and one hovered inches from me, chest tightening, vision tunnel. "You belong here, then." A face appeared, pale skull, like mouth frozen in a silent scream, fingers scraping the floor. I bolted into a utility closet, shoved shelves against the door. The shadows pressing, moving, stretching. I could hear breathing, slow, deliberate, waiting for me. I backed into a corner, trembling. My flashlight flickered. The walls of the closet seemed to bend and breathe, shadows crawling into every corner and crevice. Time lost meaning. I could not tell how long I was there. Every second an eternity. The whispers now chanting my name, hundreds of voices overlapping, repeating every fear, every memory. I tried to close my eyes, but even behind them, I saw the shadows, their glowing eyes staring through my eyelids. By the time the first light of dawn hit the basement, I stumbled out. The shadows receded, as if they had decided to let me go. The lobby was normal, sunlight streaming in, office workers arriving, cars honking. Everything was as if nothing had happened, but I knew the truth. The building remembered me. The whispers followed me home. The shadows had not stayed in the tower. They were inside my mind, inside my apartment. I could see them in reflections, corners of my eyes, sometimes in mirrors, their white eyes staring at me, following me, waiting. I never went back. I quit the job, never returned. But at night the scraping continues, the footsteps, the whispers, the feeling of being watched, they never stop. And sometimes I hear my name whispered softly from hallways that do not exist. I know they are waiting for me, for anyone alone in a building at night. And I warn you, if you hear the whispers, if you see shadows that should not be there, if you feel breath on your neck, Do not turn, do not call out. Because once they know you have noticed them, you will never be alone again. I never thought a job cleaning floors at night could scare me, but that was before the first night at the Haraja office tower. I honestly thought I'd be safe, sweeping, mopping, locking doors. How dangerous can that be? Right. But the truth is, by the time I realized something was wrong, the building already knew me, it already wanted me, and once it notices you, you don't get to leave. I applied online for a night janitor job. The pay wasn't great, but it was simple work and I needed money fast. My first night I showed up at 10:30 p.m., the building towering over me, huge dark windows reflecting nothing. I checked in with the security guard who barely looked up from his phone. He slid me a key ring and a radio and said only one thing to me. Don't go past the 10th floor after 2 a.m. Nothing good happens there. He said it with this tired seriousness, like he wasn't joking at all, but I laughed anyway, because what else could I do? At first everything was quiet, too quiet. The air inside felt still and unused, as if the building was asleep. Every sound I made echoed: footsteps, mop wheels, dripping water, my own breathing. I started on the 5th floor, glass offices and dim hall lights. It felt normal enough until the footsteps began. Soft, slow footsteps behind me on carpet that should have muffled sound. I turned around. Nothing. The entire hallway was empty, but the sound didn't stop. It just moved farther down around a corner, out of sight. I told myself I was hearing the building settling. Then the lights flickered, not just a small flicker, a stuttering blackout, like someone unplugged reality itself for a second. When they came back on, the shadows looked different, longer, bent, and I swear some of them weren't where I remembered. I brushed it off, tried to keep working, until I heard it. A whisper right at my ear. Don't leave. I spun so fast I slipped on the wet floor. No one was there. But the whisper remained inside my head, like it was still speaking, but only I could hear it. My heart hammered and I tried calling the guard. No response, just static. Trash bag in hand, I got in the elevator. It should have taken me back to the lobby. Instead, the doors opened onto a floor I'd never seen. The 8th floor. But it was different, completely abandoned, dust thick under my shoes. Boxes stacked against walls like someone left in a hurry years ago. I took one step out and saw a person, or something shaped like one, standing at the end of the hallway, way too tall, arms hanging low like stretched rubber, head tilted sideways like a broken toy. I froze, and for a moment it didn't move. Then the lights flickered again, and it was gone. The elevator slammed shut, buttons dead. Darkness swallowed me so fast it felt intentional. Something moved next to me. The air shifted. The whisper changed. Stay. I started running, my flashlight shaking wildly, revealing glimpses of shapes moving inside the rooms, hands against the glass, faces pressed into the darkness, eyes glowing white, dozens of them, all watching me. By the time the lights returned, I was already halfway down the hallway, breathing hard, hands shaking. I pushed through a stairwell door and ran down. The stairwell smelled like rot and wet concrete. Scratching sounds followed me, like nails dragging along metal. Every floor I passed was wrong, doors I'd never seen, storage rooms filled with old furniture, walls covered in deep, uneven tally marks. Hundreds, maybe thousands, like someone was counting days, or victims. At the bottom, I shoved my way into the basement. It was colder down there, much colder. My breath turned white in front of me and my flashlight dimmed like something was draining it. The whispers turned to many voices, overlapping, growing louder and louder. You should not be here. We see you. We are waiting. I stumbled into a small storage room and slammed the door, trying to be quiet. But the moment I locked it, something pressed against the other side. Slowly, deliberately, like a face. I could hear breathing right through the metal, slow, deep breaths. And then, a clawed hand slid under the door, fingers scraping the floor, pulling itself forward inch by inch. A pale face appeared next, twisted, stretched skin, empty white eyes, mouth hanging open in a silent scream like it was stuck that way. "You belong here." I backed into a corner trembling. The shadows behind it began to move, crawling along the walls like they were alive. Everything was wrong. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. Then suddenly everything stopped. A loud buzzing overhead, the electrical hum rising, and the door swung open on its own, morning sun leaking into the stairwell from above. Somehow, like it changed its mind, the building let me go. I ran. I didn't care that I fell twice. Didn't care that people stared when I burst into the lobby looking insane. I just ran until I reached the street. Out there everything looked normal. The city waking up, cars moving, people smiling. No shadows whispering from the walls, no stretched faces watching from the ceiling. I quit that job, I never went back. But I don't sleep anymore, not really. Because the whispers followed me home. Sometimes late at night when I turn off the lights I hear footsteps in the hallway even though I live alone. I hear the soft scraping against my bedroom door. A quiet whisper just barely audible. "We found you." And if I ever dare to look into a dark corner of my apartment, I see them. Those glowing white eyes. Watching. Waiting. Learning. So if you ever work at night, in a school, a hospital, a mall, an office building, listen closely. The darkness is alive, and it knows exactly when you're alone. If you hear whispering, if you see a shadow that shouldn't be there, if you feel breath on your neck, do not turn around. Do not look directly at it. Do not acknowledge it. Because once they know you've seen them, you'll never be alone again.